where he's just going crazy in game. And sometimes maybe that's what makes that character and that player so great, is that they are actually that calm, but when they're that focused into a game, something else takes over. Those instincts take over in game, and that's why they're at the top. Ben, overall though, Na'Vi, definitely a lot of people, again, we talked about this several times, they weren't even that expected to get through the qualifiers to get to TI5, but they battled through once again. They're here at TI5. Sure, for now, starting as underdogs, but do you think there's still a chance to see them just suddenly turn a switch on and make the drive all the way?
It's a tough match against LGD. I think they'd be very happy to get at least 1 point, and Secret will also be very happy if Na'Vi got 1 point versus them. But it's their general plan for victory. It's like the risk reward thing. They risk a lot for the early game, but the reward is very little. Like they don't actually increase their chances that much of winning the game, and their strategies, seems like just flip-flops in the middle of a game. Like we just saw the Naga game. Like, okay, Sneako's like, okay, I'm just going to be the one here. And not that he's incapable of doing it. It's just, you have to have a clear mindset before the game, and adaptations are necessary, but that's a far too drastic one, I think, to be thought of before the game starts. And everyone has to be on the same page, and they have had internal issues in the past. So I just hope that they can convene into one solid game plan.
Do you think, part of that is, again, as you guys were mentioning, Havos's personality maybe permeating through the team, or do you think maybe all 5 players are kind of just okay? They all are like, all right, sometimes I just switch my mind. I'm like, this is what needs to get done, and they just go with that plan, and then
I don't really think they worry about the YOLO thing too much. I think it's more important that they have fun and they have chemistry. I actually played with Havos not too long ago, and he's still the same old chatty jokester, similar with Dendi, and Funix seems to get along with them very well too. Suneko and art style, I'm not too sure of personally, but as long as you have high spirits, high morale, I think they can go very far.
I think it also speaks to why Havos has been on the team since TI1, right? Because he's had some down periods where especially the community was giving him a lot of flack and being like, he used to be a great carry, now he's just overextending constantly, he's making a lot of mistakes. Right. Replace Wost with a better carry player, and Na'Vi has kept him the whole time. And I think it goes to show how important it is that you have chemistry between your players, that you have, like Ben said, you have the whole morale boost, and that you're just an enjoyable guy to play with, because obviously the thing that people do not see in the games when they just watch, you will see the mistakes, right, and you will see the big plays, but you don't see what ties the whole team together. And if he is that key part that has kept Na'Vi together for these 5 years, then that is definitely a very good reason to keep him in the team, right? And as much as he has had down periods, I think he has had some outstanding games for Na'Vi as well, where he's gone out of control. To me, his biggest strengths are, I've talked about it previously, one-on-one matchups. If they can get that for him, he is a very good one-on-one player in the safe lane. And he also just stands for some of the games where we've seen the one carry furthest ahead of the carry of the opposing team, some actually 100% net worth leads where he has 35k on his gyro and the enemy has 17 on theirs. And it's if he gets rolling, he gets rolling.
Now, it's funny that you mentioned that. Earlier, of course, we saw Ferrari's piece, too, and just both of these players being 5 years with their team, being loyal, and the team being loyal to them. It's, of course, a mutual relationship. Now, Winter, we talked about LGD and maybe their flaw. You were mentioning that maybe they focus a little too much on securing a late game in their draft and trying to focus too much on building that up in-game. Is that something that the Na'Vi should try to take advantage of?
Na'Vi have shown that they can be very aggressive early on, but from what I've seen in the first few series, they have trouble as well. They are like C9, a little like C9. They can't finish the game when they have a good lead. A couple of games, I think they shouldn't have lost against MVP, I think. One of the games, they were leading by such a huge margin, but they couldn't finish the game. They made mistakes, and they threw the game away. And against LGD might just have to, we just need to pick late game, because Na'Vi is not going to be able to finish us off, because they are having trouble right now sieging high ground. So that might be the plan of LGD. And Na'Vi has to make sure that they minimize their mistakes.
At the same time, C9 really turned a new leaf themselves today, right?
What we saw from C9 now. C9 is already they sorted out that issue. They are making less mistakes. They are more composed when they're going high ground. Na'Vi has to go through the same phase as C9 did in the past 2 days.
Okay, so as we wait for the second match here on the main stream, let's talk a little bit just overall bigger picture here at TI5 when it comes to the draft and the meta that's developing. We were trying to look at percentages after day 1, not as big of a sample size. After day 2, if I'm not mistaken, Gyro still at 67% win rate, and obviously quite a few picks, number of bans too. Do you think Gyro's a hero where it's if you can help it, just better to ban it out, because if it's 67%, teams haven't really figured out a way to really play against it when you give it away.
He kind of, in a way, falls under the category of, like, him and Leshrac share a similarity in the sense that there's no, like, very clear weak phase of the game for the hero. He's great in lane, he's great in team fights, he's fast at farming, and he's super good late game with the rapier. So it's like, there's no direct weakness to exploit when you're playing against Gyro, and it's more about playing around the team. And he's just such a good follow-up too, right? In a lot of, if you look at a lot of carries, like say we compare him to an Anti-Mage, then Anti-Mage will maybe get more farmed super early if he has a really easy lane, but Gyro, you can join fights really early, and if anyone engages it for you, you can have such a massive impact. Even if you have a bad game, he can still be really useful with just his spells alone. So. I just see him as a very strong hero for that reason.
I mean, Ben, so then, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like Gyro, it's hard to just say, all right, we'll give Gyro, we'll take this hero as like a one-on-one counter, but overall it's like you just have to overcome it with execution and team play. Is that the best way to look at it?
I think there are some unexplored solutions to dealing with him. For example, you can get a pipe to mitigate his ultimate. We don't see pipe picked up very often.
That's true.
He does like a lot of damage at the start of the fight too. Something like a Centaur Ags upgrade I think would be pretty good, or even like a hero like Juggernaut, who I think can actually contest him 3-on-3 in the safe lane. And I think that teams are just used to, okay, we can't contest him, let's just let him free farm, and then they don't really tackle the problem. Similar with Anti-Mage, just like, we know he's probably going to own us late game, but let's worry about that later, right? I think they're looking at it a little bit, they're concentrating too much on a particular phase of the game, whereas Gyro, he's good at all phases. You have to think about the big picture. So I would just like to see teams explore a little bit more, maybe like Lifestealer. I don't know. The thing about Gyro, he wasn't picked a lot prior to this particular phase. He was like picked a lot at the start of 6.84. He got nerfed a little bit, and then he didn't really see that much play. So I think teams have been preparing a lot for Tusk, for Naga, and for Leshrac in the month prior to TI, and then they haven't looked as much as Gyro. So it's better just to ban it or take it yourself, because the like hard counter or even soft counter are still not really out there.
All right, Winter, what about you? What are your thoughts on Gyro?
I think Gyro is a hero where he has very little weaknesses, but I think one of the weaknesses that he has is overcome by having teammates. He has no survival ability. Like if you gank him, he's gonna be dead if there's no backup. But in the sense that you play Gyro as a very team-orientated carry, so you count on your team to bail you out if you get into a sticky situation. But in the past, we've seen teams deal with Gyro like what Ben said. You get a face rush carry like a Lifestealer with a Storm. You jump him first, and you kill him right away, because you need to get access towards... Gyro's usually behind the team fight. He flags off something in front, and he splashes on all your teammates. So you need someone to get your carry right in front of his face, and you just kill him from there. So, but with that being said as well, you need to pick it at a timing where there's maybe no Winter Wyverns as well, because there's a couple of supports that's really good at dealing with this, like the Dazzle, especially if you jump in with the Storm Lifestealer, that's a Grave. So then it counteracts your initiation.
All right, well, the draft for the next match is about to get started. Before that, let's take a quick review. One thing to point out is Cloud9 now cruising forward with 7 points, tied with Complexity, who are also showing a really strong start here at TI5. So, Winter, we were talking about Cloud9 before, and you said, well, they're kind of middle of the pack, but they're either going to surge upwards or downwards. Right now, they're on the rise. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Right now, draft for LGD versus Na'Vi going on in Game 1. We have started it just a few seconds ago, so we'll jump right into that and take a look at how this match pans out. Undying and Lesh being the first bans from each team, rather.
And there's the Naga ban from LGD. They probably saw Navi's last game, and like Ben said, if you're LGD, you're like, we'll just go late game against Na'Vi, where it seems like they struggle to end the game. But there's one hero late game that could get super annoying. It's just the Naga. And maybe in addition to that, the risk of Na'Vi perhaps being able to break base because of the Naga is also gone. Like, if you play a support Naga, one thing we've seen, for example, I think it's the clip I remember was Kuroki. You get a Blink Dagger, you blink in behind the buildings, and you sleep the team, and you take a tower. And it's like a no-risk play. You can just do it over and over again. If you struggle at pushing base, if you're not that organized at it, that's like a cheap way of doing it. So, better safe than sorry.
All right, and the hero that's been on the table for the whole week, Gyro, being picked up by LGD first.
Na'Vi will probably go for the Shadow Fiend. I feel they've been favoring the Shadow Fiend on the Raiden for Dandy a lot as well, and picking some combination of minus armor with Slada, Dazzle together with the Shadow Fiend.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because since we have seen the Slardar Shadow Fiend a couple of times from Navi, it's a good combination in itself. But Slardar is actually a good matchup against Gyro, not in lane, but in the mid game. He has a way of catching. He amplifies the damage, and he hits really hard. And he's not afraid of the man fight when he has a BKB. He can actually just lay into Gyro one-on-one because of how powerful amplify damage is. So it could be a path for Navi to go. Of course, if they do pick, let's say, Shadow Fiend and Slardar first, which I would really be surprised if they do.
Yeah.
Then there's a Dazzle for LGD. So
Probably
you need to be
not.
careful.
SF Dazzle, I think, would be a
SF Dazzle opener, or SF Quap's still in, so you kind of have to go for that. LGD will probably get their Shaker, and then the question for Navi is, do you want to go for a Slardar somewhere down the road and play an offlane Quap, and then if that's the plan and you want to counter the Gyro, you have to get rid of Wyvern and the Dazzle, I think, to be able to play the way they want to do that.
All right.
Or just ban Wyvern, I think, and take Dazzle, or
Vice versa. They
Yeah.
play a really good Wyvern on Senego, so they could do that.
I like that approach more with a Slardar as opposed to something like a Phantom Lancer, which we've seen picked somewhat to counter Gyrocopter. But Slardar is just generally more aggressive, and you're online much quicker. You get a Blink Dagger, boom, you start fighting people a lot, and it looks like LGD would take Dazzle in the first phase. I think that's not great if you're Navi, just because it plays so well against their playstyle in general, and they have very aggressive heroes with the Queen of Pain.
It's possible LGD. So this was the exact same opener we had against Secret, except the Gyro was a Lesh, and then so what I mean is Secret went for they went SF Quap in the first game, the game they won, and LGD's opener was Gyro Shaker, right? Yes, it was Gyro Shaker. So I think the reason they might be going for the Dazzle here is that they want to keep their options open and not stick with one strategy the whole time and just get too used to getting that Shaker